My name is Cheyenne. The first time I truly understood what betrayal feels like, I was standing in a county courthouse with my entire life on the line. The courtroom smelled faintly of polished wood and old paper. Sunlight filtered through tall windows, casting long shadows across the floor. I could hear whispers behind me, curious strangers, reporters, business associates, people who once shook my hand with respect, now watching to see if I would fall. Across the aisle stood my so-called family. Vivian, dressed in black designer silk, dabbing at perfectly dry eyes. Henry, jaw tight, pretending confidence. Leo, restless and sweating. Oscar, trying to look sober for once in his life. And then there was me. Alone. But not weak. The judge flipped through the file placed before her. A single document rested at the top. One piece of truth. One piece of evidence strong enough to rip apart months of lies. Police officers quietly positioned themselves beside my relatives. In that moment, my heart wasn't racing. It was steady. Because I knew something they didn't. Truth doesn't scream. It waits. My grandmother, Amelia Thompson, never believed in shortcuts. She came to America from Ireland in the 1960s with almost nothing but determination stitched into her bones. She worked mornings in a textile factory, nights cleaning offices, weekends taking extra shifts. She never complained. She calculated. Every dollar she saved was a brick. Every sacrifice was mortar. Slowly, carefully, she built the Thompson Garment Company from scratch. What began as a tiny operation with second-hand sewing, machines grew into a respected supplier for major retailers nationwide. Buyers trusted her word more than contracts. Employees respected her more than authority. She wasn't just successful. She was formidable. My childhood unfolded inside her cottage on the edge of town. My parents loved me, but they were drowning in bills and overtime shifts. So Amelia became my after-school world. Her kitchen always smelled like cinnamon and baked apples. She would hum Irish songs while kneading dough. Then she would sit across from me, her green eyes sharp and thoughtful. "Success comes to those who work for it, Cheyenne," she would say softly. "Never mistake access for ownership." I didn't understand then. But I do now. Unlike the rest of the family, I never looked at her and saw money. Vivian did. Vivian saw handbags, charity galas, and country club memberships. Henry saw investments that always failed but somehow required more capital. Leo saw party nights and gambling tables. Oscar saw endless business opportunities that burned cash faster than matches. They didn't love her. They tolerated her. For her money. When I turned 18 and my parents moved to another state, I made a decision that would change everything. I stayed. I finished college while living with Amelia. I worked part-time at the company. I learned the supply chain, vendor negotiations, payroll systems, quality control standards. She trained me quietly, patiently. "You have the Thompson spirit," she told me once after I successfully negotiated a difficult contract. The others only inherited the Thompson name. As she aged into her 80s, her strength began to fade. Arthritis curled her fingers, her steps slowed, her eyesight weakened. At 85, she fell in the kitchen. I remember the sound of porcelain shattering. I remember the fear in her eyes. I put my career plans on hold, without hesitation. "You have your own life," she protested from her hospital bed. "You are my life," I replied. For 2 years, I became her caretaker. I managed her medications, scheduled specialists, reviewed business reports by her bedside, sat with her during long nights when pain wouldn't let her sleep. And where was the rest of the family? Vivian called when she needed $50,000 for a limited edition handbag. Leo showed up shaking, begging to cover gambling debts. Oscar appeared drunk, pitching another doomed restaurant concept. Henry hovered around financial statements like a vulture. In her final months, Amelia grew quieter, observant. One evening, As the sunset turned the sky gold and pink, she said something that stayed with me. "I've made arrangements. When the time comes, everything will be clear." I didn't ask questions. I trusted her. She passed away on a silent winter morning. The house felt hollow without her laughter. But grief didn't have time to settle, because the storm arrived. Vivian cried loudly at the funeral, but her tears disappeared when attention shifted. Leo avoided eye contact. Oscar could barely stand straight. Then came the will reading. The lawyer cleared his throat and read the words that changed everything. Amelia had left the controlling stake of Thompson Garment Company, her house, and the majority of her estate to me. To me. The silence lasted 3 seconds. Then it exploded. "She manipulated her," Vivian shrieked. "This is elder abuse," Henry snapped. Leo slammed his fist on the table. Oscar knocked over a chair. And that was the day they decided to destroy me. They hired Victor Reed, a ruthless attorney famous for winning ugly will contests. Rumors spread overnight. I was accused of isolating Amelia, brainwashing her, forcing her to rewrite the will. Business partners hesitated. Suppliers delayed contracts. 3 lawyers refused to represent me. Later, I discovered Henry had quietly called several law firms to blacklist me. But then I met Clara Diaz. Young, sharp, relentless. She listened carefully as I told her everything. "They're not attacking you," she said calmly. "They're afraid of losing control." While organizing Amelia's study, I discovered old ledgers and loan documents. Vivian had borrowed over $200,000. Leo had accumulated over $300,000 in unpaid loans. Oscar had consumed nearly $500,000 for failed ventures. They already received their inheritance, I told Clara. But the real turning point came days later. Inside Amelia's jewelry box was a small antique key attached to a locket. A memory surfaced, a diary note about a safe. Behind a landscape painting in her study was a hidden compartment. Inside was a fireproof safe. My hands trembled as I unlocked it. Audio recordings. Signed loan agreements. A private investigator's report detailing financial manipulation attempts. Recordings of Vivian pressuring Amelia to transfer shares. Henry suggesting she was mentally declining. Leo threatening legal action. Oscar yelling when denied more money. Amelia had seen through them. And she had prepared. Court day arrived. Victor Reed painted me as a greedy opportunist. He described me as a manipulative caretaker who isolated an elderly woman for financial gain. Clara waited. Then she began dismantling their narrative piece by piece. Cross-examination exposed inconsistencies. Financial records contradicted their testimonies. Then came the recordings. Vivian's voice echoed through the courtroom speakers, cold, demanding. Henry discussing strategies to push her into compliance. Leo threatening to publicly challenge her competence. Oscar swearing at her. The judge's expression hardened. And when Vivian, panicking, screamed, she wasn't supposed to use those recordings. The courtroom froze, because she had just admitted she knew about them, which meant they were real. The judge called for a brief recess. When she returned, police officers followed. "Based on the evidence presented," she stated firmly, "this court orders the immediate detainment of Vivian Thompson, Henry Thompson, Leo Thompson, and Oscar Thompson for investigation into elder abuse, financial fraud, and conspiracy." Gasps filled the room. Vivian collapsed into hysterics. Henry went pale. Leo stared at the floor. Oscar said nothing. In the months that followed, criminal investigations unfolded. Vivian and Henry accepted plea deals to avoid lengthy prison sentences. Leo cooperated and received reduced penalties. Oscar entered court-mandated rehabilitation. But my victory wasn't revenge. It was restoration. I established the Amelia Thompson Foundation for Elder Protection, dedicating a significant portion of the inheritance to protecting seniors from financial exploitation. Because that is what Amelia would have wanted. 6 months after the trial, while renovating her attic, I found a sealed letter hidden beneath old linens. It was addressed to me. "My dear Cheyenne," it read, "I have watched my family look at me like a vault instead of a mother. You looked at me like a human being. Use the evidence if you must, but never let anger define you. True wealth is measured by how many lives you protect, not how much money you hold." I cried, not out of sadness, but out of peace. The inheritance was never about money. It was about legacy. And I carried it forward legally, strategically, powerfully. The company thrived under my leadership. Profits increased. Employee benefits expanded. Transparency policies strengthened. I implemented mandatory elder protection training programs within our corporate foundation network. And every time I walked past Amelia's portrait in the company lobby, I felt her presence. Strong, unbreakable. They tried to paint me as greedy. Instead, I became unstoppable. If this story moved you, if you believe truth and smart legal strength always win in the end, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay with me for more stories where justice doesn't just survive, it dominates.